The dog started barking at a suitcase at the airport, and when the police decided to open it, everyone at the airport began to cry. Toby was a very special tracking dog. With his black and shiny nose, he had a sense of smell that seemed magical, able to detect anything strange in the middle of a place as crowded as the airport. He was a medium-sized dog, with soft fur and ears always on alert. When he put on his work jacket, everyone knew he was ready to take action. That day, Toby was more attentive than ever. He walked next to Raphael, his trainer and best friend. Both were inseparable. Raphael had taken care of Toby since he was just a clumsy and energetic puppy, so he knew every look, every bark, and every movement of the dog. He knew that Toby had something special, a powerful instinct, and a desire to protect the people who were coming and going from the airport. Suddenly, Toby stopped, raised his ears, and left his tail motionless. He breathed deeply into the air and took a few steps toward a brown suitcase, which surprised Raphael. Toby generally didn't pay attention to common suitcases, but this one felt different. Toby approached the suitcase and began to bark non-stop. It was a firm bark, determined, as if he were saying, "Here's something that's not right." And that bark wasn't just any bark. It was Toby's special bark, a warning that he was sure there was danger there. People around him began to look, some curiously, others with fear. After all, Toby was known for always being accurate and never barking for no reason. Toby's barking made everyone stop. Soon, the police and security specialists approached to see what was happening. They surrounded the suitcase and began to investigate very carefully. For them, there could be something dangerous inside, so they used their equipment and checked everything from top to bottom. Meanwhile, Toby remained attentive, with his eyes fixed on the suitcase, and his barking did not cease. He circled it with his snout very close, and from time to time, he looked at Raphael as if he were saying, "You have to trust me. There is something wrong here." The specialists analyzed the suitcase from the outside, checked with their devices, and even used special equipment to detect something dangerous, such as explosives. However, nothing seemed strange to them. There was no smell, nothing dangerous. That's why they were confused. After all, what had Toby smelled? Some police officers suggested that it could only be a mistake and that the suitcase did not seem dangerous. But Toby remained restless. For him, it was not a mistake. He knew that there was something inside that suitcase that had to be discovered, and he continued to bark firmly, trying to alert everyone. It was at that moment that Raphael began to think, if Toby is so sure, let's follow his instinct. Raphael looked at Toby and, although he didn't fully understand what was going on, something inside him told him that the little dog tracker was right. After all, Raphael and Toby had a very strong connection, and Raphael knew that when his furry friend was so insistent, it was because something important was happening. Raphael approached Toby, who looked at him with those big and confident eyes, as if he were saying, "Trust me, Raphael. I feel there is something here we must see." And that look was enough for Raphael to make a decision. He turned to the police and said firmly, "I trust Toby. If he is reacting like this, we must give him a chance and open this suitcase." The police looked at each other, even with some doubt. But seeing the seriousness on Raphael's face and Toby's agitation, they decided to accept. Raphael looked at Toby one last time, and at that moment, something magical happened. Toby looked at him with bright eyes, moved his tail forcefully, as if saying, "Thank you, my friend." It was a simple gesture, but full of meaning. Toby's tail did not stop moving, and he seemed relieved, knowing that Raphael was by his side, ready to face whatever was coming. With the trust of his human friend, Toby gained renewed energy. He got closer to the suitcase, sniffing with even more determination, as if he wanted to say, "Now we are going to see this through to the end." Toby, in the background, knew he wasn't just a dog trained to find suspicious things. He was much more than that. For Raphael and everyone around him, Toby was a true protector, someone who would do anything to keep people safe. As he wagged his tail and sniffed the suitcase, Toby felt that his friendship with Raphael made him stronger. It didn't matter what they found in there, he was ready, and at that moment, the duo was prepared for anything. Before we continue, remember to leave your like and subscribe to the channel if you love animals and their exciting and inspiring stories. When the police opened the lock of the suitcase, what appeared inside was something that no one could believe. 3 puppies were piled up, crouched and barely breathing, with opaque and dirty fur, as if they had not seen the light or received affection in a long time. They trembled with cold and fear. Their eyes were almost closed from weakness, but they still tried to survive, each one supporting the other, seeking comfort and protection. The people around them, who had been looking curiously and fearfully, now had their eyes full of tears. It was as if that airport had stopped in time to witness that scene. The puppies were so fragile, so defenseless, that some people placed their hands on their chests, while others covered their mouths in shock. Full of emotion, and there was no one who did not feel the weight of that moment. Raphael leaned down to look closer and felt a mixture of relief and sadness. He gently placed his hand on the head of one of the puppies, feeling the fragile body and the slight breathing, almost like a sigh. That touch seemed to be the only sign of kindness that the puppies had received in a long time. Next to him, Toby, who was always so active and energetic, was calm and silent. He approached the puppies, lowered his head, and carefully sniffed them, as if he wanted to tell them that they were safe now. Toby licked them with a tenderness that seemed impossible for a trained dog to detect dangers. He not only sniffed, he felt. It was as if he knew exactly why those puppies were there. When the puppies were carefully placed on the ground to receive fresh air, an incredible scene unfolded. All at the airport, who before had only watched from afar, now stopped completely to look. It was as if the world had paused for an instant, and the usual noise of the airport gave way to a silence loaded with emotion. The people around began to approach slowly, some holding their hands to their hearts, others with eyes full of tears. It was impossible not to be moved when seeing those 3 small beings so fragile, abandoned, and suffering. The scene was heartbreaking. The puppies, crouched and with sad expressions, were there in the middle of such a big place, but now, for the first time, surrounded by true love. It was as if everyone at the airport shared the same emotion, the same desire to take care of and protect those little ones. The children held their parents' hands, asking what had happened to the puppies, while the adults looked in silence, unable to contain their tears. Some took photos, not out of curiosity, but to record that unique and moving moment. Each gaze was fixed on those puppies, and the weight of that situation seemed to deeply touch the heart of each person present. Raphael, upon seeing the reaction of all, felt an even greater wave of emotion. He understood that those puppies were not only being physically rescued, they were being welcomed, receiving love and compassion from all those people who, in some way, had connected with their suffering. Once the tension decreased, Raphael, with his heart full of emotion, let go of Toby's leash. The dog, who had been keeping a close eye on him until that moment, did not waste time. He walked quickly toward the puppies, showing immense affection. He leaned over, approached the little ones, and began to sniff them, as if he wanted to make sure they were well, that they were really safe now. Toby, with the care of someone who understands the pain of others, began to lick the puppies one by one. He did it with so much delicacy that it seemed he was saying, "You are not alone. I'm here to take care of you." The little ones, still scared and confused, began to move, to react a little, as if they felt that they were finally in a safe place. They were still weak, but little by little, their eyes opened, and a little shine returned to them. Raphael watched that scene with his heart. Seeing Toby so dedicated and affectionate with the puppies deeply moved him. He felt guilty for a moment for doubting his friend's instincts, but now he understood that Toby was not just a working dog. He was a being full of compassion and sensitivity who managed to perceive the pain of others in a way that went beyond training. The others around him, seeing Toby take care of the puppies with so much love, were also moved. Many commented among themselves how that special puppy had not only smelled danger, but also saved those little ones with his heart. It was a moment of tenderness and hope, where everyone realized that even in a place as busy as the airport, there was still space for kindness and care. And in that affectionate embrace that Toby gave to the puppies, it was clear to everyone that he was more than a tracker. He was a true hero, a friend who felt and protected, and what made the difference in the lives of these small beings. With the help of people at the airport, the puppies were quickly taken to a veterinary team from an animal shelter that arrived at the site. The situation was urgent, and everyone knew that the little ones needed immediate care to survive. The veterinarians opened their suitcases, full of instruments and medicines, and began examining the puppies very carefully. The professionals took care of the little ones with immense delicacy. They cleaned their wounds, removed some parasites, and gave them a little water to drink, drop by drop, using small syringes. The puppies, still weak, responded slowly, but the simple fact of receiving those first aids already made a big difference. It was as if they understood that they were now in good hands, and that gave them a little hope. Toby, who had followed until the place of attention along with Raphael, watched carefully, without taking his eyes off the puppies. It seemed as if he were proving that the veterinarians were really doing their best for his new friends. From time to time, Toby approached, watched the work of the veterinarians, and with a look full of care, seemed to approve each gesture, like a true guardian. Raphael, next to Toby, felt a mixture of relief and gratitude. Seeing the puppies being treated and reacting to care brought peace to his heart. He looked at Toby with immense pride, feeling that the work of his furry friend had been more than essential. Toby not only found the puppies, but was there, supporting, making sure that everything would end well for them. While the veterinarians were giving the last care, the puppies began to react a little more, trying to lift their heads as if they knew that now they were finally safe. During the treatment, one of the veterinarians made an unexpected discovery. When carefully examining each of the puppies, he noticed that they had small identification chips under their skin. These chips were similar to those used to monitor pets, containing important information about their origin. When checking the data, the surprise was even greater. The chips revealed that these puppies were not just street dogs. They belonged to a distant zoo located in a Middle Eastern country. This indicated that the puppies had been illegally taken away from the place where they were born. The veterinary team and the police who followed the case were perplexed. How did those small animals end up so far away from home, locked inside a suitcase? That discovery changed the course of the investigation. The police, who until then saw the case as a simple abandonment of animals, began to suspect something much greater and more dangerous. Raphael, who listened to everything carefully, exchanged a significant look with Toby. Now they knew that the story of the puppies was much beyond a simple rescue. With the discovery of the identification chips, the police decided to investigate thoroughly, connecting the information of the puppies with a network of trafficking that, until then, seemed harmless. But as the clues emerged, the truth became increasingly dark. It was not just a group that trafficked puppies from exotic animals. The scheme was much bigger and crueler than anyone could imagine. Those small dogs were part of an international criminal network that not only limited itself to trafficking animals, but also people, especially women and children, treated as merchandise. This organization, spread across several countries, transported its victims in deplorable conditions, as if they were worthless objects. And the identification chips in the puppies were just a small clue to the whole operation. It was an organization without a heart, without compassion, that saw life, human or animal, as something that could be sold to the highest bidder, regardless of the suffering involved. The police, increasingly impacted by the discoveries, understood the seriousness of the situation. Those puppies were not only victims of illegal animal trafficking, but also represented an important link in a network that benefited from the suffering of countless lives. The situation deeply affected each involved agent, and what started as a simple investigation now became a personal mission to dismantle all that cruel organization and return freedom to those who had been unjustly captured. As the investigation progressed, more dark secrets began to emerge. The police discovered that the same network that stole and sold exotic animals was also responsible for the trafficking of women. The details were shocking, and for all those who followed the case, it became clear that Toby's instinct had revealed something much bigger than they imagined. The police operation extended for months, with agents in several countries joining together to dismantle that network of cruelty. Thanks to Toby's initial alert, many people and animals were rescued from horrible captivity, where they lived in inhumane conditions. Raphael, along with Toby, followed the news of the investigation with a mixture of pride and deep emotion. Never, in his most remote dreams, did he imagine that that day, at the airport, with the insistent barking of his faithful friend, he would become the starting point of such a great and painful international operation. With every new detail that arose, he understood the true magnitude of the horror that had been discovered, and his heart was heavy. But what hurt him the most was imagining the women who had been treated as objects and taken from their families. He cried thinking of the young sold as merchandise, in the lives destroyed and in the dreams stolen. Sometimes, in the midst of those thoughts, he looked at Toby, who rested next to him, the same dog who had started everything with his decisive barking. Toby, who was more than a dog tracker for him, was his friend, his faithful and protective companion. Raphael wondered what it would have been like without Toby. In his heart, he understood the unbearable emptiness that the victims' relatives must have felt, imagining their daughters being torn from their arms and taken to uncertain destinations. Raphael caressed Toby's snout with affection, feeling immense gratitude, but at the same time, a deep pain. The dog's barking had made the difference, and Raphael knew that, for many people, that barking meant the opportunity to regain peace, of knowing that someone was fighting to bring justice, even in the midst of suffering. Toby, without understanding everything that was happening around him, remained there, with Raphael as always, while his friend was reflecting on the impact of a partner who not only traced dangers, but also brought hope. With time, the investigation finally came to an end, and the outcome brought a feeling of justice. All the hideouts were discovered, dismantled, and, little by little, those dark places where life seemed to have no value were transformed into places of liberation. Each person responsible for those cruel acts was captured and taken to court, and the feeling of victory was shared among all those who had worked tirelessly in the case. The people who had been rescued, each with their own suffering story, returned to their homes. They carried deep traumas, invisible marks that only time could soften, but now they had something that used to seem distant: security and the warmth of the people who loved them. Being back, surrounded by family hugs and comforting words, was like a balm for the wounds they were carrying in their souls. Some of them cried when they met their loved ones again, without believing that that nightmare had finally ended. They were welcomed with affection, protected, and now had the opportunity to rebuild their lives next to those who never stopped waiting for them. Although they knew that the path to healing would be long, the fact of being at home, surrounded by love and security, made that process a little more bearable. For Raphael, and especially for Toby, the conclusion of the investigation was not only a professional victory, but a victory of hope over fear, of justice over suffering. Those lives that could now begin again were proof that even the greatest pains can be relieved by courage and compassion. At the end of months of investigation and rescues, Toby's role stood out in a special way. The authorities organized a ceremony at the airport, with Raphael by his side, to recognize the heroic act of that dog tracker who, with his instinct and dedication, started the series of events that led to the dismantling of the criminal network. Toby received an honor medal, brilliant and with an inscription that said, "Hero of Justice." But everyone there knew that no medal or speech could summarize the true impact of their actions. The moment was exciting, and the people who witnessed the rescue of the puppies that day came back to see the outcome of the story. They applauded and took pictures, some holding posters with the name Toby, others with tears in their eyes, because they knew that little dog had saved lives. He not only had smelled danger, he had captured a call, a mission. In some way, he had become a protector for those who needed him the most. Raphael, with a mixture of pride and emotion, sat down and hugged Toby, looking at his faithful companion and remembering every detail of that day at the airport. He whispered softly to the dog, "You are more than a hero, Toby. You are a true friend." Toby, with his tail wagging and his chest inflated, looked at his trainer with the same shine in his eyes he had the day he met the puppies, as if he knew that his work had made the difference. That day, all those present understood that Toby was not just a trained dog tracker. He was a symbol of courage and compassion, someone who, with just one bark, gave hope and a second chance to all who crossed his path. At the end of months of investigation and rescues, Toby's role stood out in a special way. The authorities organized a ceremony at the airport, with Raphael by his side, to recognize the heroic act of that dog tracker who, with his instinct and dedication, began the series of events that led to the dismantling of the criminal network. Brilliant, and with an inscription that said Hero of Justice. But everyone there knew that no medal or speech could summarize the true impact of their actions. The moment was exciting, and the people who witnessed the rescue of the puppies that day came back to see the outcome of the story. They applauded and took pictures, some holding posters with the name Toby, others with tears in their eyes, because they knew that that puppy had saved lives. Not only had he smelled danger, he had captured a call, a mission. Somehow he had become a protector for those who needed him the most. Raphael, with a mixture of pride and emotion, crouched and hugged Toby, looking at his faithful companion and remembering every detail of that day at the airport. He whispered softly to the dog, "You are more than a hero, Toby. You are a true friend." Toby, with his tail wagging and his chest inflated, looked at his trainer with the same shine in his eyes he had the day he found the puppies, as if he knew that his work had made the difference. That day, all present understood that Toby was not just a dog-tracking trainer, he was a symbol of courage and compassion. Someone who, with just a bark, gave hope and a second chance to all who crossed his path. Thank you very much for watching the video until the end. Remember to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with your opinion about this story.